Okay, let's talk about Crumbly. So this is the case in which there was a school shooter, and we're not going to say his name, but he went in, he shot up a school, and both of his parents in a first of its kind criminal prosecution are now on trial. The wife and mother was found guilty. This is out of Michigan. This is a connection with the 2021 Oxford high school shooting. Now, 1 month after his wife gets convicted, the husband, the father, is charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter after his son killed 4 students and injured 7 people back in November of 2021. The case against the father seems to center around the fact that, like the mother, he was allegedly a negligent parent, didn't give a shit that his son was a mess, was not well mentally, and he allegedly knew it, but there's a dispute between the prosecution and the defense on that, and did nothing about it. And in his case, you guys tell me, but I think, David, the best evidence is he bought him a gun 4 days before the shooting. And then when the school called him up to say, we found some very disturbing drawings, he didn't say, oh shit, I just bought him a gun. We should get him out of here and get him some help.
Or confiscate the gun. And the prosecution is essentially saying also that it was a straw purchase of the gun, meaning that you can't buy a gun and intending to hand it directly over to somebody who's not the purchaser. He handed it over to his son 3 days after the purchase, saying that it was a gift. But he was aware of the psychological problems that his son had at the time. No way would any responsible parent give their child a gun under those circumstances. So that's what it boils down to. It's just criminal negligence. And I suspect that he will be convicted of this. Should he receive a long sentence? No, because I don't think either parent ever conceived of a possibility that this type of outcome, this horrible, horrific outcome would have happened based on the way they parented their child, or in the father's case, the way he gifted the firearm to his son.
Well, I don't know about that, because the prosecution is introducing evidence of the 911 call, Jonna, that the father, so what happened was the father and the mother were called to the school the day of the shooting before it had happened, and they had found disturbing drawings by the son where he said, please help me, and it looked like he had a picture of the gun with blood dripping. It seemed very much like this could be a potential school shooter, and amazingly, one of the biggest mysteries of this case, the school did not insist that he leave. And the parents did not insist that they take him home. And the prosecution's already arguing, he said he had to go do his work, but he was a DoorDash driver and hadn't even checked in yet, so he didn't really have to go to work. Just didn't give a shit. He didn't care about his son. And they're going to introduce the 911 call from the dad that he made right after he got word that same day that a school shooting at his son's school was unfolding, and use this as evidence that even though the father wants you to believe this was unforeseeable, could never have imagined my son, listen to what he said to the 911 operator that day. SOT 26.
I have a missing gun, and my son was at the school, and we had to go meet with the counselor this morning because of something that he wrote on a test paper, and then I was in down, and I saw a whole bunch of cops going somewhere, and I made sure that I wanted to get to the high school, so someone was going to high school, and then somebody told me that there was an active shooter, and then I raced home just to find out, and I think my son took the gun. I don't know if it's him, I don't know what's going on. I'm really freaking out.
Okay, apologies to the SiriusXM audience and podcast, because it's hard to hear. But he says, I have a missing gun and my son is at the school. I think my son took the gun. So, I mean, that's pretty good evidence for the prosecutor that he did foresee his son as the shooter, Jonna.
Yeah, and that's very scary. But I also know in this case that there's some contradictory evidence. For example, the day that this happened, and what really bugs me about this case, really bugs me, you guys, is the fact that when the school alerted everybody that there was a problem with this child, and they didn't insist that he leave campus. I don't care whether it was with his parents or in a police car, get him the hell off campus. But they didn't do that. But there's some contradictory evidence that even the guidance counselor who was, I don't know, alerting everybody or assessing the situation he testified that he did not believe this kind of thing was going to happen. So the defense is basically saying, all right, look, if a trained counselor isn't viewing this as an imminent threat, for lack of a better word, then how can we also say that the parents should have seen it the same way? So this is the kind of back and forth evidence. And one of the things that this parent has going for him that the mother did not is, I think there was a testimony or evidence in her case that she gave him, handed him, that she was the last person, that's it. She was the last person to touch the gun. And then the next thing you know, the son has it. So is that going to be enough? Is that line fine enough that it's going to save the father? I don't know. This case stinks all the way around, from the school to the parents and obviously to the shooter himself. This is tough. And I don't like it because it's unprecedented, charging parents for this kind of crime. I don't know, but I guess maybe we're there.
Yeah, we're opening up a new chapter in, responsibility for these mass shootings.
Megyn,
we've talked about it on the show before. Is it only going to be forgive me, but is it only going to be the white kids in Michigan whose parents get charged? Or are we going to do this in cases where there's other rampant violence in the inner cities, let's say, by parents who absolutely know they have a gangbanger living with them and some 2-year-old gets shot? Are we going to do those cases too? I don't have any excuses to make for these parents whatsoever. It's just, how far are we going to go with it? Here's a bit, David, from the opening argument against the father, James. Top 24.
James Crumbley bought that gun that his son used to kill as a gift for his son 4 days before the attack. James Crumbley failed to secure that gun in a way to prevent his son from accessing it. The decision that James Crumbley made to buy that gun as a gift for his son was made even though he knew that his son was in the midst of total and complete social isolation and had been in a downward spiral of distress that had been going on for some time. You'll see evidence that as early as spring of 2021, the shooter had expressed to his one and only friend that he had asked his father for help. He told him to suck it up. That was in April of 2021. You learn that instead of receiving help or intervention of any kind, James Crumbley instead began to take his son to the shooting range.
And David, I think that was a lock that could have been used on the gun, but wasn't.
Well, you could have used a gun safe as well. I don't think the purpose of the gun was defending the family. It didn't sound like that was in any event. So the gun could have been stored in a safe. Taking him to the shooting range certainly is a form of recreation a lot of families engage in. And so I don't see that being a problem. But I just think the mental health issue is a big one. And Megyn, like I said earlier, there are a lot of politics now to guns and gun prosecutions and the way they're selectively done. And that is something that we got to deal with. But, look, the son is gone. He's spending life in prison now. And the question is, how much do you want to punish the parents as well?
A lot.
You want to punish them because of what they knew, but they didn't kill anybody. And I don't think, honestly, they had no clue that he was reasonably likely to go kill.
Okay, but let's talk about that. Let's talk about it. So maybe let's say they didn't, that they actually didn't. In fact, they had no clue. They should have, right? That's the legal standard. Knew or should have known. They should have had a clue. That's the thing, Jonna. In the trial of the mother, you grew to hate her. It was no matter how many problems arose with her son, she didn't seem to give a damn whether it was physical well-being or his mental well-being. There were diary entries of him, allegedly reaching out for help. Again, we've already heard that in this case about how he went to the dad. You heard that in the opening statement and said, "I need some help," and the dad said, "Suck it up." Now, look, that is a form of parenting. Where you can make the argument we've leaned too far into, "Oh, sweetheart, you must have this syndrome or this anxiety disorder. I'll get you immediate help from the school guidance counselor who has absolutely no credentials to help you whatsoever," right? There is an argument to be made for you're fine, right? Mm-hmm. But the net on these two shows they were terrible parents. And this kid's had all these cavities, like, I don't know, over a dozen. Like, they weren't taking care of him. And so, 4 people are dead. I can see why the jury went after the mother, and the dad buying the gun is arguably even more culpable when he knew, or had reason to, that his son was not a well person.
Yeah. And hey, perhaps these parents were in denial because look, if there's something wrong with your kid, I think it follows that there's something wrong with you as a parent, right?
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, either you caused it, you're not doing anything about it, you didn't cause it, you're not seeing it. Okay, fine. But if your child is in trouble and you're in denial, well, then at the very, very least, you do not give him access to a deadly weapon, right? And I guess that's the underlying theory of this case, although I do, again, think it's a little bit of a legal leap between that and charging the parents criminally with the involuntary manslaughter, but we are there now. And let this be a lesson. Okay. Let this be a lesson.
Financial experts thought we were in the clear. They were anticipating around 6 rate cuts by the Fed this year, and then the inflation data came out higher than expected. This isn't going away anytime soon. How could it? The U.S. is $34 trillion in the hole, and yet we keep just printing money, which pushes the prices you pay every day even higher. So you can either bury your head in the sand or you can do something about it. One option to consider is to diversify a portion of your savings into gold with Birch Gold Group. Gold can be your hedge against inflation, and Birch Gold makes it easy to own. They will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold, and you don't pay a penny out of pocket. Text Megyn to 989898 and get your free info kit on gold. Then talk to a precious metals specialist about how you can choose to protect your savings from persistent inflation with gold. Just text my name, MEGYN, to 989898 right now. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.